Good afternoon. My name is Ryan Paul Johnson with the Fairfax County Department of Transportation. I want to welcome you to this meeting to discuss the proposed active transportation and trail network, which was developed on the ActiveFairfax plan project. Before we begin, I'd like to go over some guidelines so that everyone can participate and get the most out of this session. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and will be posted on YouTube and will be then linked into the project webpage. Microsoft does offer a live captioning service. You can find that by clicking the three dots and choosing Turn on Live Captions. Once the presentation is completed, we will begin the question and answer portion, during which participants can ask their questions aloud. You may also submit questions using the chat function at any time, and we'll do our best to answer any questions while ensuring that we get to all the participants today. If you have multiple questions, this means that you will get back into the queue so that everyone has a chance to participate. If you're on the phone, please hold your questions until the end of the presentation. We'll have instructions on how to ask those questions at the conclusion of that presentation. We also encourage you to submit your comments onto today's meeting using online survey, the online feedback form, or a phone call. And once again, we'll go over that at the end of the presentation for you also. Before we begin, I would like to introduce our presenter, Andrew Sheldon. Andrew is a member of the ActiveFairfax Transportation Project team and is an active transportation planner with the Fairfax County Department of Transportation. And I'll hand it over to Andrew.
Thank you, RP. Thank you, everyone, for attending this afternoon's ActiveFairfax Transportation Plan Update, November 14th, 2024. Today's agenda is to discuss the project background and status, update of the planned active transportation and trail network, the active transportation toolkit, and to share your thoughts, and hopefully we'll have answers for you as well. Project background and status. Active transportation, the definition. Active transportation includes all forms of non-motorized travel, walking, biking, and rolling. Also includes electric micromobilities such as e-scooters, e-bikes, and skateboards. Project purpose: to update and streamline Fairfax County's active transportation plans, policies, design best practices, and programs to better serve people walking, biking, and rolling, and riding. Our current local guidance is the Trails Plan, MAP, Bicycle Network MAP, and the Comprehensive Plan. Project status. The project started in 2020. The completed tasks include active transportation need analysis, the demand analysis, safety analysis. That was completed in 2020. The initial community engagement was in 2021. The vision, goals, and objectives, which are to the right here, our visions and goals include access and connectivity, user safety and comfort, community health, equity, and sustainability. Safe Streets for All program recommendations were in 2022, and updated bicycle parking guidelines in 2024. Continued outstanding tasks that need to be completed or that are underway. Update of the planned active transportation trails network, active transportation toolkit, program recommendations, policy recommendations, implementation of recommendations, not yet started, and final report. Expected completion date is the end of fiscal year 2025. From our first phase of public engagement, here were the priorities. As you could see, connectivity stood out the most. Lighting, crossing sidewalks, bike lanes, trails, safety, among other ones. But as you can see, connectivity was the main theme that we heard. Update of the planned active transportation and trails network. Network plan update process. Step 1 was to combine the plan networks, add public input from phase 1, engagement, fix the data, any errors that we found, consolidate the overlapping routes. And then step 2 included filling those gaps, review for conflicts and final alternative routes if possible, coordinate with parkland owners and develop land use based map. Step 3 included identifying trail network routes along roads, enhanced neighborhoods routes and regional routes, and coordinate with surrounding localities. We are here. As you can see, we're in the public engagement phase, which ends on December 20th. The next steps would include to revise the draft network based on the community engagement and feedback that we received, public hearings, comprehensive plan amendment. What is new? Designing for all ages and ability, safe systems approach, designing safer streets to reduce traffic crashes, context sensitive design, one size does not fit all, facility selection guidance. As you can see, there's a guideline document here based on the daily volume traffic, the speed, the number of lanes, and then what facilities could be included in that environment. Pedestrian recommendations, complete street recommendation, including street trees and lighting, better connectivity for more daily destinations, including schools and parks. Now we'll discuss the different types of facility types. Pedestrian facility types, standard sidewalks that you mostly see everywhere, enhanced sidewalk, more space for especially for people pushing strollers to be able to walk by each other comfortably, or more space for people in wheelchairs, or just be able to deal with more people walking in a bigger space. And then a pedestrian trail kind of going through a park or a nature area that's a little bit off the street, that's more comfortable and provides more shade. Pedestrian facility types, on street, no vertical separation from traffic. So probably see many standard bike lanes or a buffered bike lane. Bicycle facility types separated from traffic. A one-way cycle track. You can see the green area is where a driveway could be coming out, or maybe a side street. A two-way cycle track for bicyclists to go in both directions. Off-street one-way cycle track. And then off-street two-way cycle track. Low-stress shared street with safety and wayfinding signage. So this is a very low volume, low speed street. Could have wayfinding signage to schools or parks. You'd share the road with pedestrian, bicyclists, and motorists. A neighborhood greenway. There's a sidewalk for pedestrians, bicyclists. There's a low volume and low speed again, and then there's some parked cars as well. And then pedestrian for a street is a complete street with trees, lots of area to walk. It's really pedestrian friendly. Cars can go down it, but they would have to go obviously at very low speeds because there's lots of people walking and it's very narrow. Multi-use trails along roads. There's multi-use hard surface trails, usually 12 feet wide for faster travel lanes. And you can see it's pretty straight, so you can get going at a good speed. Multi-use hard surface, 8-foot wide trail designed for slow travel, probably more in a dense area where there's going to be more people walking and more people out. And then an urban trail. Multi-use trails through open space. Multi-use hard surface trail designed for faster travel speeds, as I mentioned before, but in both directions. Multi-use hard surface trail for slower speeds, possibly through a neighborhood or a park. Multi-use natural surface trail, and then boardwalk. These are limited application, possibly over a stream or a wetland, but it's not something that we would want to install everywhere, but in certain situations. Draft network symbol overview. The green trails are through open space. The purple, as you can see, the purple are travel along streets. Blue lines are through neighborhoods. Orange are governed by other localities, so Fairfax City, Alexandria, etc. RP, do you just want to share that link in the chat so people could access that on their own? That'd be great. Urban network routes. All right, the design for key active transportation routes within activity areas, very dense. Then here's the recommendations at the bottom. It could qualify for one-way cycle track and enhanced sidewalk. So you're separating the pedestrian and the bicyclist by having the bike lane. here's a single one-way bike lane, and on the other side is pedestrian facilities for a standard sidewalk or maybe enhanced sidewalk. And then on the other side of the street, there'd be the same bike lane, possibly, obviously going the other direction. And then other options would be a two-way cycle track, urban trails, possibly, as I mentioned, a one-way cycle track with enhanced sidewalks, two-way cycle track with enhanced sidewalks. So there's lots of different options that we'll be giving planners and designers to make these areas more walkable and bikeable and safer for everyone. Trail network routes. The purpose is to provide comfortable active transportation network connections along key transportation corridors between key destinations to improve access for daily destinations. And then the recommendations would be multi-use hard surface trails designed for fast speed, as I mentioned earlier, or multi-use for slower speeds. And then other options could be a one-way cycle track with a sidewalk or a two-way cycle track with a sidewalk. And then here's an example here. Enhanced neighborhood routes. The purpose, low stress network connections through neighborhoods and network spurs to improve access to neighborhood destinations such as trails, parks, schools, bus stops, houses of worship. Typical facilities, neighborhood greenway with sidewalks, on-street bike lanes, either standard or buffed, multi-use hard surface trail for slow traffic, shared street with sidewalks, wayfinding and enhanced signage, pedestrian first street. And then there's possible other options, one-way cycle track and two-way cycle track with sidewalks. Trail network routes, the purpose, active transportation network connections between neighborhoods, between daily destinations, provide access to nature, improve access to recreational opportunities. Natural surface trail could be a recommendation, multi-use hard surface trail designed for slow travel speeds, multi-use hard surface trail for fast speeds, and I mentioned before, a boardwalk, possibly going over a small stream or a wetland. Stream valley trails are co-located with environmental quality corridors to establish integrated network of stream valleys and associated lands. The purpose of these is to conserve open space, protect wildlife habitat, and water quality. Just note, not all stream valley trails routes will include a physical trail for humans, but function as a wildlife corridor only. Just because you see it on that draft map does not mean it's going to be a trail for humans. It's just showing that it's a stream valley trail. The visionary network. Note, this network plan is visionary. There are no dedicated funding for this implementation, and projects will prioritize for funding based on established criteria as funding becomes available. Once a project's funded, it could take as minimum of 3 to 5 years on average. However, the plan will develop a list of recommendations for projects. Now we'll discuss the Active Transportation Toolkit. Draft Active Transportation Toolkit. The purpose is to provide public and private transportation planning experts a tool. Content overview, planning, implementation of guidance on active transportation facility selection, design, and best practices. A collection of relevant design and policy resources. Standalone guide will not be part of the comprehensive plan. Now I'll pass it over to RP.
So we're going to share some ways that you can share your thoughts. If you want to go to the next slide. So there are 3 different ways that you can share your thoughts right now. You can give feedback taking the survey, which can be found at the website, which is https://engage.fairfaxcounty.gov/F8367. Or you can also leave comments on our interactive map. That's really also great that you can pinpoint actual locations where you want to leave a comment. And you can find that at www.fairfaxcounty.gov/transportation/bike-walk/ActiveFairfax. Or you can give us a call at 703-890-5898 with the project code 7268. And you can leave a recording there. And we are once again To remind everyone, we're taking feedback and comments until December 20th, 2024. Okay. And I do believe now we are going to move into our question and answering for our attendees. You may ask your question verbally by using the raise the hand tool at the top of your page. I would go ahead and enable your microphone, and then you can unmute your microphone. Once you have made your comment or your extra question, go ahead and mute yourself, please. If you're using the phone, you can press *5 to raise your hand. And when you're called upon by number, by me, you can go ahead and press *6 to unmute yourself. And then once you have answered your question or left your comment, you can go ahead and press *6 to mute yourself again. You also can submit questions in the chat if you would like to do that as well. Okay, so I see we have one hand raised so far. So, okay, Sonia, I'm going to go ahead and allow your mic, and you can go ahead and mute yourself and ask your question or leave your comment.
Great, thank you so much. Appreciate the presentation. I've been following this effort all along, and I've already made other comments. But I think today what I wanted to ask about was park trails and the fact that they're not included in the active Fairfax Transportation Network. I understand, y'all are coordinating with parks generally, but it's a little disconcerting that park trails aren't included in this comprehensive countywide network, because I think park trails need to be part of our trail network, and that coordination to get the trails into this network now should be happening, because otherwise, we really need a mechanism for that coordinated planning. What happens down the road? It's just not clear. And I'm really concerned that it's going to end up with this lack of connectivity. And our park trails are really amazing, both the trail system for the parks, but also getting to the parks and making sure that we can bike to our parks. I think, the Park Authority did this PROSA with looking at access to parks, but they're only looking at walking. They were not looking at biking to parks. And I think what we need to try to get away from is this sort of driving to our parks and then parking there when we could just bike there. So I just sort of wanted to lift that up, because we don't want our parks to be barriers. We want them to be accessible. And quite frankly, in our county here, like, they're a wonderful place to get out and ride and walk, and they should be part of the active transportation network. So I wanted to know, what the planning effort is with regards to park trails and how we can ensure that connectivity. And is there any chance that we can incorporate the park trails and whatever planning efforts they need to do into this SCDOT effort so that we have a comprehensive network? So I'll leave it at that. I just wanted to get your 2 cents on what y'all are thinking about that.
Sonia, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I think, Nicole, are you there? Or, Nicole Wyans is the project manager for ActiveFairfax. I think if she's available, she might be better at answering this question. Definitely hear your concern. Nicole, are you available?
Yes, thank you, Andrew. Yes, hi, Sonia. So when we looked at the planning out the network, we did include all the park trails in the planning efforts. And also parks recently went through the effort to map out every single park entrance. So the park entrances is really where our mandate is. So getting active transportation users safely to the park entrance, particularly the public park entrances. And we used that data while we were going through the network. So we really had a strong focus on improving access to the parks, as we recognized that was a gap previously in the previous plans, even though there were some parks that were part of the network. It wasn't really comprehensively looked at as a major kind of daily destination that we want to make sure. So you will see a lot more connections to parks and park trails, even though the trails themselves are not part of the park trails themselves are not part of this comprehensive plan, because each park has their own master plan. It doesn't mean we're not, planning it together. It's just the planning guides for those areas are on a separate map in the county. So in order to help, with the review of the public review of the plan network, we did include the existing park trails on the map. So you can actually see those. They are part of the base layer. So they don't have the purple and the green, but they're brown lines, the skinny brown lines that you can see where to have an understanding where current park trails are located in relationship to the network outside of parks. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Tanya, for that question. We're going to move on to the next person. I see Kevin. I'll go ahead and allow your mic, and you can go ahead and answer your question or leave your comment. It seems like you're unmuted, Kevin, but we can't hear you.
All right, I think this should be working. Sorry about that.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
So yeah, my question. Really appreciate the highlighting the different types of facilities and how really trying to create a sort of a robust menu of options for future planners and implementers to utilize. A lot of the facilities that you highlighted, especially on-street facilities, would not currently be allowed under like current VDOT sort of guidelines. And I'm just wondering how the county is thinking about that. Perhaps maybe the answer is like it's to come, right? I know you highlighted that there's going to be a discussion about policies in 2025, but yeah, just thinking about like this is all well and good, but if we go and we, hey, we're going to redo this corridor, how quickly are we going to, be sort of stymied by, VDOT who says actually you can't build that type of facility that you want. What's the strategy, and how are we thinking that this plan will interact with that sort of on the ground reality?
You may want to take that one too. So this plan is a little bit different than past plans. So in that, as Andrew was alerting to, we have more flexibility in the facilities we can choose from. And it really depends on the context of the road, the land use, the community needs. And yes, it does depend on, VDOT's approval. So, but instead of prescribing certain facilities that may or may not work in a specific context or may not be approved by VDOT, we want to provide a greater range of options that all have a very similar ability to provide comfortable facilities or amenities or accommodations for active transportation users. So, that they're especially, I guess you're alerting maybe to, alluding to the shared streets, like the neighborhood greenway and the pedestrian first street. So those are actually in a pilot phase with VDOT, and the new legislation that was passed recently at the state level that would allow us to lower speed limits is definitely a step in the right direction. So some of these recommendations are still visionary, but we are working on working with VDOT through, the design details, what would work within the framework, what we can do. But also, this guidance also applies to private developments, and they have a lot more flexibility on private roads. So we definitely encourage developers to look at our recommendations and toolkit to think outside the box and really, look at the facilities that may be possible within their private street network. We know there's a lot of interest. So there was a pedestrian first street proposed in Reston. Unfortunately, they were a little bit ahead of this plan and ahead of their time, so it wasn't approved by the Planning Commission in the end. But hopefully, with this guidance, we will keep encouraging developers to provide those type of facilities within their bounds as well. And then also the county has a handful of roads where we own and maintain those streets, and we are thinking about using those to potentially pilot some of those designs as well. But yeah, it's an ongoing challenge. But we don't want to limit ourselves to a specific facility that we know is something we can do now. If we, legislation changes, especially at the federal level, so we want to be ready with the plan as a option to move forward with those type of innovative applications.
Can I ask a follow-up question? Oh, all right.
Sure, go ahead.
So the following up on that. So is this going to be sort of how do I want to say this, like a mandated in the sense that if a project, right, if we're looking at a roadway and we've got to do a project on this, and this roadway happens to be considered a regionally significant trail, will it mean that like that road cannot be, this project cannot move forward with unless we're also considering like this adding this facility? Obviously there are going to be times where you are going to sort of open up a road specifically to add these facilities, but I'm wondering, like, to the extent that like there's a project that may not be sort of bike ped first, but is the idea that like once this is sort of passed, the comp plan is amended, if whatever road X is listed as this, if anything is going to happen on road X down the line, we're going to abide by what's in this plan in some form or fashion, whether that's this kind of trail or that kind of trail or an on-street facility. But if it's called for in the plan, we're like, this will be sort of like a mandated treatment on that road.
That's a great question, because we're working in a comprehensive plan, which is not a mandated treatment. So comprehensive plan is a recommendation, a community vision, but it doesn't mean that's implementable everywhere at all times. There are ways to waive certain requirements for developers if something doesn't fit, or that we have developers coming with minor modifications to their property where they may not trigger a comprehensive plan recommendation or treatment that they would need to implement. For example, they may just change the signs, or in those cases we cannot ask for that. But if they come in with the full, bulldozing the entire property and rebuilding it, a new subdivision, we usually have a little bit more teeth in getting that recommended facility. Individual properties, single-family properties are a big exception to that. So we actually have no legal way of asking those property owners to put anything along the roadway, which has been an issue in the past, and we would need to come back later with our own public project to reconstruct that facility along their frontage. And then when we have capital projects and we try to implement the plan, we try to stay within the intent of the comprehensive plan as much as we can, but of course we're also limited by right-of-way impacts and environmental impacts and the cost of the project. So sometimes we do have to provide some flexibility, and I think this methodology or change in methodology to provide greater flexibility will help with the implementation, because in the past sometimes we had there's a trail recommended along a road, well, it doesn't fit, now we do a sidewalk. which is not a multi-use facility. So it changes the facility from, it was meant to be a bike facility to a pedestrian only. And we want to help avoid that in the future and look at other options. So maybe, the road can be narrowed, look within the curb. Is there any space? Could road be put on a road diet? Could the outside lane, if it's underutilized, could it be turned into a cycle track, which also would reduce cost of the project significantly. So it's not just about trying to, fit in the facility, but also, look at alternatives comprehensively, multiple alternatives to make sure, how can we best accommodate bicyclists and pedestrians? And we're providing the general guidance, but we will not be able to really, enforce it within the current legal framework of Virginia.
Thank you, Nicole. Do we have any more questions or comments? Once again, if you're on a phone, please press *5 to raise your hand, and then I will call on you and disable your mic, and then we'll press *6 to unmute yourself. Okay, I see we have a hand by Bernie Cook. I'm gonna go ahead and allow your mic, and you can go ahead and unmute yourself, Bernie.
I have a question about the cross-county trail.
Yes, go ahead.
Is there a lead agency responsible for the trail? Because some of the wayfinding is, there's some gaps in the wayfinding. So who would be in charge of aspects of the cross-county trail?
The cross-county trail it's mostly, it's a partnership between multiple agencies. It's partly maintained by the Park Authority, partly maintained by VDOT, and partly maintained by the Fairfax County government. So it really depends on the location, but the wayfinding signage, is my understanding, is mostly a Park Authority initiative. So I would start there. But if it's within right of way, they may need to coordinate with FCDOT or VDOT in order to implement those.
Well, for example, there's a new underpass under Route 7, which is a tremendous improvement, but there are no signs indicating where the underpass is. So my question is, who would I approach to address that?
That one I would think would be within the purview of the Park Authority. I know they coordinated very closely with VDOT on that underpass, and they may have a signage projects in the works that is not installed yet. So I would reach out to them to find out, what the plans are. I know they redid a master plan for their park just north of that location. So it may be the signage may get installed as part of any park improvements there. So that would be a good start.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Bernie. Okay, Diane, I'm going to go ahead and allow your mic, and you can go ahead and ask your question or leave your comment. Diane?
Hello, good afternoon. I just want to say thank you, first of all, for holding this session to allow for public feedback. I attended a public meeting recently about the Flint Hills Suburban Center held by their transportation committee, and it seems like that project is coming up for development within the next 5 years. I had attended recently ActiveFairfax transportation, where I think, Nicole, you mentioned that some of these regional trails might not be in progress or set to start construction for within like the next 30 years. So my question is in regards to the area surrounding the Flint Hills Suburban Center, if that project, if you guys have had any input the ActiveFairfax Transportation Committee has had any input on that Flint Hill Suburban Center project, if those kind of coincide or if there's overlap there, because it seems like a lot of issues that were raised during the Flint Hill Suburban Center meeting was that, you know, traffic is really bad for the cars currently as is, and they're thinking about building an overpass on Germantown Road to allow for more like for less congestion on that area. But I didn't hear mention was increasing the walkability in that space, as currently it's super dangerous. Like I think Fairfax County Public Schools has recommended for children to not walk to the Oakton Elementary School there and to not cross those lanes of traffic. A concern for me is because I'm, as a resident of that area, that the children should be able to walk and bike to school, and residents around the area should be able to walk and bike to local retails or shops or offices. And so I just wanted to hear if you guys have had any say in that project.
Andrew, do you want to address the walking question to school?
Yeah, as far as I'm familiar with this school, as far as Fairfax County Public School has guidelines and policies for students walking and biking school to school. Under the current walkability, students are bused because they're not allowed to cross those 2 lanes of traffic. Obviously, it'd need a major redesign for the neighborhoods across the street from there to be able to walk and bike. But in this current environment, you're correct, they are bused to school based on FCPS's criteria for walking boundary.
If I may follow up with that, because there is the Waples Mill Elementary School is the one that's also close to me, and that one I am within less than 0.5 miles away from, and we also don't have sidewalks available. But with the children being bused to school, the bus has to stop like every other house, which creates a congestion issue as well on a major road like Waples Mill Road. So if like we can prioritize certain areas, get like the trail put ahead of time or like a sidewalk connection there to allow access to school, that would create less of a traffic issue for riders and more accessibility within the neighborhoods.
Yeah, absolutely. That area, like as you mentioned, is not walkable. Sidewalks would need to be installed. I'm familiar with that school as well. Even the development right across from the street is bused because it's not a safe area to cross based on their policies and guidelines. There's not a crosswalk there because there's not a sidewalk in that development. So a sidewalk would need to be installed for students to be able to safely cross there. As far as expediting the process, Nicole, can you speak on that?
So I'm not sure, expediting the process. Usually we have a certain process to go through, and that we do so as quickly as possible. So expediting current workflows is definitely a challenge that we're trying to address on a daily basis. But there are so many projects that are being worked on that that we only have that much staff capacity. But I wanted to bring this back to this planning effort and how it relates to those ongoing studies and projects. So right now, because we're still in the study phase, this is not part of the comprehensive plan. So any of the recommendations Andrew presented on today are not something we can necessarily integrate into particular development efforts because they still abide by the current plans, the trails plan, the bike plan, as well as any activity center plans that are already in the comprehensive plan. However, we do have a little bit of flexibility to say, well, we have this draft on the way, please consider these type of recommendations to meet, the future connectivity needs, because obviously if you have a larger area, like the Flint Hill Suburban Center, that we want to have, a connected facilities and network in the area. But that's definitely something we need to negotiate during the planning process. And there's we're involved as active transportation experts, but we're not leading the planning efforts for those type of groups. We have other parts within FCDOT, our transportation planning section, as well as our site planning section that support those type of efforts. Thank you.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. I guess my question is because the Flint Hill Suburban Center is planned to be built within the next 5 years, and it kind of sounds like, from what you're saying, that Fairfax County takes a retroactive approach or like a reactive approach to planning for walkability or pedestrian friendly trails rather than being proactive about it. Like in my neighborhood, there were 2 recent deaths on Germantown Road just from like the traffic and all that, and with the building of such a large suburban center, and they're talking about increasing the FAR density to 1.0 from 0.4 as it currently is. There's going to be a lot more people traffic coming in and out of that area. So yeah, I guess I just wanted to bring that concern to the table that like, is there a way that we can take a more proactive approach rather than reactive and wait for another death or another accident in order to submit the priority to the plan that we need, that these road, like walkways and bike lanes, are critical?
Yeah, and we definitely understand that concern, and ideally we would be able to make all these roads more walkable and bikeable in much more real time. Unfortunately, even if we had a project in place and funded to improve walkability and bikeability in specific locations, it usually takes 3 to 5 years to implement and construct the project. So it feels like it's a long time. There's no silver bullet to this problem. So it's a two-pronged approach, which I'm not sure if that's really reactive or it's more, we have to put the right facilities into our plan and the right policies in our plan. And I think that's the proactive part. Say, like, we need to plan ahead for the future to create this walkable and bikeable community and improve safety. That's step one. And step two is the implementation and actually making changes on the ground, which is extremely expensive. As Andrew was presenting on, we're looking at 10 to 15 million per mile for a sidewalk or a trail. Even what looks like a simple infrastructure improvement at an intersection, an enhanced crosswalk, a traffic light, the rapid flashing beacons, the blinky lights at crosswalks, those run $500,000 at this point, and we have extremely limited funding. In a perfect world, we would ask the developer to fix the entire network around their location, but unfortunately, we don't have in Virginia the ability to do that. So we try to get what we can, but we of course limited what we can negotiate with developers, what they can implement. But we definitely have a very strong focus at the county on walkability and bikeability and try to implement. But it's retrofitting a very large area that was constructed very much focused on moving vehicles, and that turning that into something more walkable, bikeable is definitely a long-term challenge.
Understood. Thank you.
Bernie, did you have another question? Just want to make sure.
No, that was my only question. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. We have a question in the chat, I believe, from Deanna. Can speed humps be added to the roads now sooner than ever? It helps safety-wise, pedestrian and bicycle safety-wise.
Thank you for that question. Speed humps can be added through a very specific process that is governed by VDOT rules, currently through the residential traffic calming program that FCDOT has. There's a website to it that I can look up for you and place in the chat while we answer additional questions. But it's very few roads that really qualify for that type of treatment. They're mostly residential, low traffic, low speed streets. And you have to go through a pretty lengthy community engagement process. So it's a very community-driven effort. You need a certain amount of support from the neighborhood in order to add speed humps, but it's definitely possible if you live on a residential road. But unfortunately, we can't add speed humps on major arterials or connector roads like Germantown would not qualify under VDOT, under the VDOT system. So I will add the link in the chat.
Can the process be updated given urbanization? That was a
So it's
follow-up
really-
question, Nicole.
Right, it's a VDOT process. So that would be a good question to ask your state senators and representatives. So that needs to be updated on the state level. So we have to work within the VDOT framework on adding speed humps.
Perfect. Thank you, Nicole. Does anyone have any other questions or comments? Once again, if you're on the phone, you can press *5 to raise your hand. Perfect. Okay, the 703 number, I will go ahead and allow your mic, and you can press *6 to unmute yourself. (703) 745, are you able to unmute yourself? You should be able to if you go to the keypad on your phone, press *6. If it's not working for you, you can go ahead and leave your comment in the chat if you can. No? Okay. Okay. Let's see. Was that okay? So there was a question: can the process be updated given the organization? Can employees who work on these matters collaborate with state senators and reps? Was that your answer, Nicole, to that question?
Yes. So in theory,
Okay.
any policy, can be changed in general. That it's not set in stone. We change policies all the time, but it has to be done through a political process. So I would recommend, if you're interested in getting engaged on policies on the state level, to connect with your local advocacy groups that are really already involved and have the existing connections to the lawmakers. Those include the Fairfax Families for Safer Streets, FAB, the Fairfax Alliance for Better Bicycling, as well as WABA, who works also in the area. And Kevin online here is representing WABA today. So there are definitely ways to work through existing channels to bring up those type of topics to the attention of your political representatives.
Great, thank you, Nicole. Does anyone else have any questions? Okay, someone has their hand raised. Okay, Alan, I'm going to go ahead and allow your mic, and you can go ahead and unmute yourself. see, try that again. Can you try to unmute yourself again, Alan, if you can? If you're having troubles, Alan, you can type your comments in the chat or your question. Okay, I think they might be having problems unmuting themselves.
You can also make Alan temporarily a presenter.
It looks like he's typing in the chat, so he might be
Okay.
typing
Yeah.
his question or comment in the chat.
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm seeing too. Perfect. Does anyone else have any comments or anything? Okay, we will. See. Okay, Kevin, I'm going to go ahead and allow your mic. And if you want to go ahead and ask your question or leave your comment.
Yeah, just in terms of like next steps. So still have options to weigh in on all the maps, the survey, all that through the end of towards the end of December. What are you what is the team going to be doing with that feedback? What do you anticipate sort of generating out of that feedback? Obviously, like comments on maps might lead to some adjustments to the map. But I guess yeah, like what are the sort of next like products that you'll be generating for for folks to review and weigh in on?
You can take that one too. So yes, thank you for the question. We're definitely, receiving a lot of feedback that we will need to review and go through, which is wonderful. I think we have over 300 comments on the network map right now that will need to be processed and looked through, as well as the hundreds of comments we received through the survey. And there are lots of great ideas. So making adjustments to the network, to the methodology as needed, and creating basically a next version of this network plan map, and in parallel to the outreach right now, we are also working internally with our comprehensive plan experts on preparing for the launch of the comprehensive plan amendment period, which will start once we basically have a next draft ready. So as part of that period, which can take up to a year, we will go through the formal process of amending the comprehensive plan, which is actually done, as I mentioned, by a whole different segment of Fairfax County that specialize in making sure when we amend the plan that we follow all the right steps, and that will include additional public engagement. So there will be at least a public hearing, potentially additional opportunities for the public to engage and review the updated network and any changes before the Board of Supervisors would vote on the approval of this plan. And then once it's approved, it would basically replace the trails plan and the bike plan and the comprehensive plan. And that's expected to happen about mid-2026.
Perfect. Thank you, Nicole. So Alan, it's actually his question in the chat. Can you talk about the planned bridge to Bull Run Regional Park from Prince William County? Is it funded? What are the general priorities for the crossing for Prince William County to Fairfax?
So our comprehensive plan, of course, only governs areas within Fairfax County, but we work very closely with the other jurisdictions that surround us or are within us to make sure that our plans connect to their plans or at least to their jurisdictions along their roads, just in case they update their plans in the future. So we went through that coordination effort with Prince William's as well, and of course they have a lot of interest in connectivity to Fairfax County. So we have the facilities on the plan map right now, including the bridges, but I'm not aware that we have anything funded right now for implementation. So that would be a next step. The current trails plan has a couple bridges already on the plan. So even if money becomes available right now, we have current planning guidance that would support bridges, but it's usually, these type of bridges are usually built as part of road widening projects. And a standalone active transportation bridge across a river would be pretty significantly expensive. That's we would need to get probably a federal grant in order to implement something like that.
Thank you, Nicole. We have a comment and questions from Deanna in the chat. Another important comment to convey relates to walking trails, concrete and asphalt. Homeowners have their vegetation growing up to the extent that covers the trail. It's impossible to safely walk the trail or stand waiting for public transportation, given the trails being completely covered with overgrown vegetation. It's unsafe. Ticks and mosquitoes, etc. Can Fairfax County establish a law to require homeowners to cut back, remove the vegetation that encroaches, on the trails and sidewalks? Violators get fined. Send mass mailings to homeowners to notify them, remove vegetation to cover trails and sidewalks.
So that's a great point, because we do see that issue within right-of-way, which means the public-owned area between basically the road and the property border, which often includes some of the vegetation areas. That vegetation can actually be removed or maintained by the agency that maintains the sidewalk. So if the sidewalk, for example, is maintained by Fairfax County, it would be up to Fairfax County to remove any overhanging vegetation. And you can, reach out to our Department of Public Works in order to make that request. If it's a VDOT maintained facility, or there's no active transportation facility that would also be VDOT maintained, you can reach out to the VDOT report a road issue portal, and we can add the link, both of these links, to the chat as well. So you have those ready if you want to report any sort of obstructions to sidewalks and trails. But there's definitely local policies that could require homeowners to maintain the right-of-way in front of their property. It's done in other jurisdictions. The county currently does not have a policy like that. It's something that we could consider as a recommendation as part of this project, but it's up to the Board of Supervisors to take on a policy development like that. And then the enforcement of such a policy, of course, is another question. And there are, of course, questions about, if somebody has disabilities and may not be able to do so, or they may not have the money to hire someone. So that there are some community impacts that need to be carefully considered as well.
Okay, we have another comment from Deanna. It helps to train the public so these issues don't recur. Forward thinking, I'm the broken record conveying these comments often. Very much true.
Yes, thank you for speaking up about this issue. Yeah, it definitely takes a village or an entire community to help with creating a more walkable and bikeable environment.
Yeah. Okay. Do we have any other comments or questions? Okay. Bruce, okay, I'll go ahead and allow your mic. Okay, Bruce, you can go ahead and unmute yourself. Let's see, let me do this.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, I just joined. Sorry for that. I got tied up. I did have a question. In one of the very early meetings of the plan, there was a discussion about what can be depicted on the map. Currently on the map, it's really hard to figure out what the recommended facility is. The table is very complex. There's factors that most people don't have access to. I mean, for staff, it might be okay, but for people to comment, it's difficult. And then for the special area plans, there's what, over 30 of them? And for us to go into each one to try to figure out what the recommendation is unreasonable for most people. So the question is there any thought to creating a map that would show, given the current conditions and what's in the table, what would be the recommended facilities?
Yeah, that's definitely one of the challenges in having the flexibility, that it just provides more options. But in general, those are the lines on the map represent certain there's a certain umbrella. So it's not the entire smorgasbord of options. It's, it's a protected facility, but you can either choose protected facility A, B, or C, depending on your further study. And I think on the one hand, it's harder to figure out what the facility will be, because we will not know what the facility will be until we do further study. And that's by design, because otherwise it would set the wrong expectation of what is going to be built there, and then something else is built. So that's the trade-off a little bit. But we do want to strengthen, and we're working on that internally, strengthen the language in the notes to explain a little bit more clearly, and to really have a baseline facility. So if all else fails, you should have, that's your facility to build. Often that's a trail as like a minimum facility. For the blue lines, the neighborhood streets, it would most likely be a neighborhood greenway as the baseline facility. For the areas in orange, the activity centers, this plan actually doesn't cover those areas. So that's why there are no recommendations for those areas. And if you wanted to find out what those areas are, you really have to go to the other plans, because that's the only plan that actually governs those areas. And the county spends an entire year creating these plans for that specific area. And it's really important that we don't duplicate anything or have something that's in conflict on our map, because it has created a lot of problems in the past, that we showed lines on the map on this countywide plan that didn't match what was on the local plan, and that was very confusing, and it actually really inhibits the correct implementation of the network. So that's where the streamlining of this project comes from. Like we realize if we have too many areas that have the same information or similar information in the same location, you end up with 2 or 3 different recommendations for one location, which is has been very challenging. So even though it's you have to go to several maps to really understand where everything is, it's the best way I think we can help with the implementation of the plan, even though it's very technical and understandably a little bit more challenging for a community member to really understand. But any questions, staff is happy to answer. So if somebody's looking for determination on what potential facility could be built along their road, we would be able to help with providing that information.
Well, I think it would be good to have like a minimum designation, because I can see developers using that flexibility to provide not very much. But regarding the area plans, some of the area plans still reference the bicycle master plan. I think maybe a fair number of them. So after the ActiveFairfax plan is adopted, I assume the original plan will still be referenced and will still be around.
We will actually need to remove all those references from all the other planning documents and now reference the ActiveFairfax plan. There are very few where they don't have their own active transportation guidance. So those would point to this plan, and that's where the facility selection guidance comes into play. So now we have a recommendation for every single road in the county, which we didn't have before, including new roads. And if there is either no other plan guidance or outdated planning guidance that does not sufficiently support the community's needs. So there's a fallback to this built into this plan. But most of the activity centers do have pretty specific guidance that is actually superseding any recommendations and any current plans as well. So even though you see it on the bike map, it's not necessarily, going to be implemented.
All right, thank you. That clears it up. Just overall, it's really nice to see the many connections and the additional facilities there. It's just we're a little concerned about the difficulty in figuring out what those are. But in areas where there are some maybe misconnections or whatever, we being FAB are going to prepare some recommendations. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that you all are taking a very close look at all the connections, and we're definitely looking forward to receiving your feedback on the locations and routes and facilities that are recommended.
Okay. Do we have any other questions or comments about ActiveFairfax or the network? Once again, if you're on the phone, you can press *5 to raise your hand, or you can press *6 to unmute yourself once you're called upon. Okay. I am not seeing any further questions or hands in the chat or amongst our participants. So we can go, do you want to go back to the how to submit your feedback? Oh, wait, I think we got something in the chat. Deanna said, I wish Fairfax County would convey these important repeated comments to lawmakers, state and local. Thanks. Yes, thank you for your comment, Deanna. Do you want to say anything on that, Nicole?
Yeah, so we are recording all the comments, and at least our local politicians, the supervisors, will receive all the comments. This is not a state plan, so we do not usually send the comments we receive to state lawmakers, since we work for local government. But we are certainly, certainly open to other community groups, including the at least 2 advocacy groups that are in attendance today to help spread the word to the state legislation as well.
Thank you, Nicole. Any other questions or concerns before we go into how to get feedback again? Okay. Great comments and questions for sure. But if you would like to leave any more comments or give any other feedback, please feel free to do our community survey, which you can find at https://engage.fairfaxcounty.gov/F8367. Or you can leave a comment using our interactive map, which you can get a little bit more precise on the location that you would like to leave that at. And that can be found at www.fairfaxcounty.gov/transportation/bike-walk/ActiveFairfax. Or once again, you can give us a call at 703-890-5898 with project code 7268, and you can leave a recorded message there. And once again, we're taking feedbacks and comments until December 20th And of course, if you would like to have any more information on the project or review the draft active transportation and trail plan and the draft active transportation toolkit, you can visit the project website, which once again, that is https://fairfaxcounty.gov/transportation/bike-walk/ActiveFairfax. So this concludes our meeting on ActiveFairfax Transportation Plan Project. A recording, once again, will be available on the project webpage in about a day or two. We thank you all for attending this meeting and giving back your feedback and participating within the meeting itself. So thank you so much and have a great day.